Slate Edition.
Good evening, everyone. The massive search for missing barista Samantha Koenig is over, but it's not the news family and friends were hoping for.
Serial killers have a variety of different motives and styles when it comes to committing their crimes. Some killers are sloppy and don't have a plan, and simply kill on impulse and opportunity. Then there are those who are the opposite. These killers are organized, planned, and prepared for all of their killings. These kinds of serial killers think multiple steps ahead, while everyone else around them has no idea what is going on. In this video, I will go through some examples of these kinds of killers, and why I personally find organized serial killers to be absolutely terrifying. From 1974 to 1991, Dennis Rader, also known as the BTK Killer, haunted Wichita, Kansas, before finally being caught in 2004. Dennis Rader was a true wolf in sheep's clothing. He was a typical family man, with a wife and 2 children, a daughter and a son, and he was also very active in his church and his community. Dennis Rader was responsible for at least 11 victims, who he would strangle in their homes at night when they were alone, and he would meticulously plan all his crimes. Though he would choose his victims at random, he would obsessively plan out every single aspect of his murder plan. He would stake out and watch his victims for weeks beforehand. He would find out when they were alone and when they were most vulnerable, find out if they had a dog or a security system installed. He would map out the routes that victims would take during the day, and kept an extensive journal to write down any key details. In his journal, he would refer to his potential victims as projects. He would even go so far as breaking into their homes days or even weeks before committing his murders. He would do this so that he would see the inside layout of the house and locate their phone lines so that he could cut them on the day of the attack. Rader would also postpone his attacks if he noticed something was out of place and not what he was expecting. He would not make a move unless conditions were absolutely perfect. And this is how Rader evaded capture for decades.
I don't know how to exactly say that. I had many, what I call them projects. They were different people in the town that I followed, watched. Kathleen Bright was one of the next targets, I guess, as I would indicate.
How did you select her?
Just driving by one day, and I saw her go in the house with somebody else, and I thought that's a possibility. There was many places in the area, College Hill, they're all over Wichita.
Israel Keyes is not as well known as the other killers I'll be talking about in this video, but the lengths this monster would go to commit murder and evade capture is absolutely astonishing. Israel carefully studied other serial killers and would learn from their missteps. He was a massive fan of Ted Bundy and aimed to perfect the craft of killing. He was nearly surgical in his level of planning. His hunting ground was the entire United States, and he would fly thousands of miles away from his home in Anchorage, Alaska, making any investigation by law enforcement almost impossible. He made sure he had zero connection with any of his victims. He would pick homes that were in rural or more isolated locations, which had little to no chance of being interrupted by any other parties. He would use different methods to kill, and would even plant red herrings at crime scenes to mislead and bewilder crime scene investigators. Israel would turn off his phone or leave it behind entirely, He did not have any kind of social media, and he would make outsized efforts to avoid surveillance cameras and toll roads. When traveling, he would only use cash, and he would wear a disguise at ATMs when withdrawing from stolen credit cards. He would not commit to any travel pattern and would layer his travel to avoid detection, renting multiple cars and taking many connected flights. On one occasion, he flew from Alaska to Chicago, then drove 1,000 miles to Vermont to kill Bill and Lorraine Currier in 2011. After committing his murders, he was meticulous in scrubbing the scene. He would burn his clothes and dismember and bury bodies to delay discovery. In an absolutely astounding act of preparation, Keyes would make kill kits that he would bury in plastic buckets across the United States. These kits would include guns, knives, zip ties, duct tape, Drano or other chemicals that accelerate decomposition, trash bags, shovels, plastic sheeting, cash, maps, and headlamps. He would bury these kits several years in advance before he would even know who his victim would be. The total number of these kits is unknown, but so far only 2 have been discovered. The FBI believes that there may be more than 12 scattered across the US. Israel Keyes was only conclusively linked to 3 murders, but the FBI believe the number is at least 11, and some experts believe it may be in the 30-plus range. Keyes took his own life in prison, and so the true number will probably never be known.
Costing the taxpayers a lot of money to find us. But just kept my mouth shut.
Also known as Dr. Death, Harold Shipman was one of the most prolific serial killers in modern history, and he was chillingly prepared and calculated, but in a very different way than killers like Israel Keyes or Dennis Rader. Whereas they operated in the shadows, Shipman used his position of trust as a general practitioner in England to carry out murders in plain sight, using medical knowledge, manipulation, and paperwork to evade suspicion for decades. What made Shipman prolific was his painstaking dedication to killing low-risk patients, typically elderly women. By scheduling private home visits with his patients and having a strong reputation and rapport in the community, Shipman would inject his patients with a lethal dose of dimorphine, while his patients trusted it was some other drug, and then slipping away before the patient would die peacefully. No defensive wounds, no signs of struggle. Before the family would typically even discover their elderly family member dead, Shipman would already have altered their medical records, oftentimes adding in terminal illnesses like heart disease to cover his tracks from any investigations. He would end up forging many hundreds of medical documents. Killing in this low-risk fashion was the only way Shipman would take a victim's life. While incarcerated for his crimes, Shipman would actually save the life of his cellmate who was having a seizure, using his medical know-how to stabilize him before EMS arrived. This goes to show how well he was able to play the role of being a caring doctor. Shipman never confessed to taking anyone's life and took his own life in prison in 2004. Using his medical authority, as well as his caring demeanor and pathological dedication to taking lives in such a low-risk manner, Shipman was able to take the lives of at least 250 people. And some people think it may be as high as 400.
I believe he was a man who thought that he could get away with murder. He utilised his position in society and the way people sort of thought about it to commit these murders, and he obviously thought that people would believe what he told them because of the fact he was a doctor and no one would question him.